Welcome to the Hallmark After Show 2020 podcast, ladies and gentlemen. I'm one of your hosts, Will Carey. Joining me is my wife and co-host Chelsea Connor. How are you, dear?
I'm amazing. How are you?
Well, I knew that, but I was asking how you were doing. I'm good. The past.
I didn't ask you. Just to be clear,
you're just making a declarative statement.
Yeah, I'm good. I mean, I'm wrapped up in a giraffe blanket, so it's bringing me joy.
Yeah, and I've got my cool hoodie with the name of the startup I work at on, and I'm just feeling excellent. I'm ready.
Mostly because the heat's not working, and we're both too chicken shit to call the maintenance guy because he stares at my boobs when he comes over.
Well, it's not that. It's that I know there's a thing to turn, and I just don't. The couch is there, and once I put 2 or 3 steps in front of the thing, I just go, maybe I'll just be cold. I'll just deal with that.
I was hoping that it was because you didn't want another man staring at my chest.
Well, that
but
too.
I'm fine with it.
Well, that too. No one is allowed to stare at your chest except me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Is that true? Okay. Anyway.
Well,
back to the show.
Well, not in a like your boobs are mine kind of way. It's just I don't like other people.
We did have an incident of workplace sexual harassment today, though, folks. We'll get into that later.
Oh, what was that?
I was that I share a workplace with my husband, so sometimes sexual harassment is rampant.
Well, because people take showers, people just walk.
People take showers. People walk by naked sometimes.
It becomes a whole thing. That's just kind of the stuff you deal with in
what I learned
in the big city.
In my sexual harassment seminar was that it doesn't matter if it's wanted or unwanted. It's still sexual harassment.
Right. So you're saying if 2 consenting adults.
No, I'm not saying anything. The New York City Consortium for Worker Education is saying that these are the rules. But let's get to the podcast because that's what you all are listening here for, not sexual harassment tips on working from home.
Yeah, don't follow Chelsea's tips on sexual harassment. You won't be good at it. No, but I'm bummed. But we are dealing with New York City today because our film today is called Heart of the Holidays, and it deals a lot with New York City. But first of all, I just want to make a note. We're dealing with kind of, I'm going to say like a passion project, because this movie not only co-stars a gentleman by the name of Corey, last name Sevier Seaver, who plays the character Noah Kirkpatrick. This movie is also directed by the actor who plays the lead.
Whoa.
So there's always a lot to unpack there. Whenever you have the lead actor also directing, I feel like, there's either like I need to control everything, or this is like very close to my heart and only I can execute the vision for this film.
Or Hallmark is like, holy shit, we have to produce 22 movie premieres this year. We better double up on some roles.
Right. And in this film, and I will say so starring opposite Corey Seaver, we have the I'm going to say delightful Vanessa Lenges, Lengies, and she plays Sam Wallace. And to kind of go over the plot quickly, after her life in New York unexpectedly falls apart, powerhouse stockbroker Sam Wallace returns to her small town for the holidays and reconnects with her high school boyfriend.
Dun, dun, dun.
Now, yes, so right off the bat, we are dealing with high profile, high power, busy New York City career people, and they show you, and Hallmark shows you this because, and this is a thing I've seen in other movies as well, like the movie Lawn Shot with Charlize Theron. Busy people always take business calls while exercising,
which is just not how it works.
Yeah, well, first of all, like I've sometimes, if I'm like walking, I get winded sometimes if I'm walking like a long way. So
but
can you imagine,
big dude,
Right. So can you imagine like being on an exercise bike and carrying on a full conversation? Without being like,
Yeah, I mean, I'll be on, like, if I'm being completely 100% transparent and truthful, there have been a couple of early mornings at the gym where some of my colleagues in Geneva will call me, and I do pretend like I'm just sort of briskly walking, but I've definitely been on a treadmill. So like
Mm-hmm.
it's totally happened, but it's not something that like I plan for and actively happens in my everyday life. I would say which much more realistic is me attempting to type emails while on an elliptical, which usually like works for like 15 seconds, and then somehow like the brain synapse in my hand-eye coordination and typing words, like I definitely like am the goof who like trips on the elliptical, which is really hard to do if you've ever tried to do it.
Yeah, no, it takes work to trip on an elliptical, I must say.
Yeah. But I agree with you that it's like it's the most ridiculous thing, and I think most busy people, like, no one actively plans like conference calls and meetings and things to happen while you're doing your workouting.
Exactly.
That's a verb.
Yeah, but there is lots of, I think they're saying like lots of multitasking, and then we see that again.
And then she
when
falls
Sam's,
asleep like while she's doing the setups
Yeah.
too, which I also don't understand how that happens.
Like she
but-
finishes the call and then she's just like, I'm going to take a quick nap, and then her boyfriend at the
named
beginning,
Will, like
Na-
my co-host.
named Will, played by Rene Escobar Jr.
No way, that is not his name.
That is his name. He
Oh, poor soul.
you folks might have seen him in the Amazon original Tom Clancy's Jack Ryan, starring Jim from The Office.
We don't talk about Amazon in this household. We're on this podcast.
And
We have no comment.
And here's how you know. They're busy because they're both trying to eat takeout and have conversation with each other, and they both keep getting. Well, he keeps getting phone calls.
So it's like our Valentine's Day every year.
Yeah. The amount of times we've been in a conversation and you've walked away to send an email or take a phone call,
Or just like you've been talking and then like it's just you're like waiting for my response and there's like an awkward silence for a good like 10 minutes. I'm like, oh no, I'm just responding to this email. I'm listening.
Yeah, but Will's he is in the middle of a big business acquisition, and Sam is just getting ready to start a new job on Christmas Eve at this big, powerful brokerage firm. And then
There's a couple of days before Christmas, but yeah.
Yeah, and because and it sets up like her mom calls and she can't come home for the holidays.
No.
That's the kind of life that Sam is living, and then she walks into her new job on the first day to find out that her boyfriend has acquired the company she just started working for.
Right. And like supposedly he didn't know that was happening the whole time that he was working on this merger acquisition.
Right.
But whatever. We're just going to go with it. And he's like
so,
standing in the CEO's boss when she arrives. It's the first day of work.
Yeah. And so now technically he would be her boss, which is already a recipe for disaster. Like, never do that. Well, there's also, again, in those workplace harassment classes, there are things about like the power dynamics and stuff, because in the event of workplace relationships, they have things set up for that. But the other thing is that Sam wants to like help fund like nonprofits and startups, and her boyfriend is not about that. He's about like maximizing capital and all those buzzwords. And all of a sudden, she can't do this. So effectively, right before Christmas, she has become unemployed.
Right. Well, sort of. I mean, she left her other brokerage firm to join this one, and she's like, I'm not working for you. You're my boyfriend. I'm going to go upstate, as we call it in this household.
Which I actually think is like, Western New York.
Yeah, but it's also upstate.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, anything north of the Bronx, really.
Is upstate.
Yeah, like Yonkers is definitely upstate. Rockland County, upstate. Anyone listening from those places, please come and fight me.
Please don't. I don't want to have to deal with it.
But yeah, so she goes to her hometown, which is like hella far. It's like up by like Buffalo, which is like the furthest
like
from
on the
New
Canadian
York City.
border.
Yeah, like definitely the furthest from New York City that you can get.
Yeah. And the town is called, I don't think the town actually exists. It's called like Rockley or something like that. Crowley, which is actually a town in England. Interestingly enough. So she heads back to her mom's house, and instantly we can see just how much she's changed since her humble upbringings in small Crowley. She's
And let's not forget that clearly her dad also a workaholic, just like her. So it's like father, like daughter.
yeah, and the father is dead. He worked himself to death. And the other detail,
Yeah, that's a weird one, but
and the other
anyway.
detail I remember from this like culture clash is the next morning when she wakes up, her mom gives her hot cocoa, and then she's like, "Oh yeah, I'll have it after I come back from my run." And her mom is like, "Run?
Yeah.
It's
Well,
cold
that
out
and
there."
like her mom is like constantly offering her hot chocolate. Like hot chocolate is mentioned, I would say like minimum a dozen times in this movie.
Yeah, it becomes the roasted chestnut stand for this movie.
And I don't know about you all, but like, hot chocolate's nostalgic, but like I might go for a mocha. I might spice things up with a peppermint mocha or an eggnog mocha or creme brulee, something. But like
Something with some
I'm a
caffeine
grown up
in it.
and I'm going to have real caffeine, not just like fake chocolate caffeine.
Exactly. And then she stumbles into her old boyfriend, and it gets weird right away. And her mom is not being very understanding of the fact it might be weird. She's volunteering her daughter to help with things,
To make cookies.
To make cookies.
'Cause
And
that's what the women folk do in these towns.
yeah, very traditional
Gender
gender
roles.
roles. And there's Sam's friend
I
who
learned about that too in my sexual harassment class today.
And then, well, speaking of gender roles, there's
Gender
Sam's,
identity and gender expression. They're different,
They are.
but both can be sexually harassed.
It is true. And and then on the topic of gender roles, there's one of Sam's childhood friends whose entire personality seems to be that she's pregnant a lot.
Yeah, there are women like that.
Oh no, I know.
I think.
I have a hometown also.
Yeah, I also think like you reach a certain age as a woman, and it's like there are the women who have birthed offspring, and there are the ones who haven't, and it's a question of like why haven't you? It sort of becomes
or
like,
why did you? There's the judgment from both sides.
I think there's judgment from both sides, but I think there's also like a specific age where it's like those who haven't are like maybe even more judged. But I could also be saying that because I'm in that seat as opposed to being in the other seat.
Right, but I always judged the women who like were never intellectually curious to want to leave the small town that we were from, and their whole personality is just that they have a large family. And I'm like, really?
Right.
You didn't want to do anything to like expand your own horizons or live or see anything, and that's probably classist and
It's a little
condescending
judgy,
of me as well. But
I'm just gonna say it, judgy.
well, it is, because I kind of relate to Sam's struggle through this movie is that she wanted to leave the small town to have her own life in New York. And then there's this kind of pull, like she's constantly telling people that she's just visiting at the beginning of the movie when people say, "Oh, you're back home." I mean, like, I'm just visiting. Like,
But
that's
that
my
was
biggest
true.
fear.
Okay, but
That's
I'll
my
be
biggest
honest.
fear for my life.
Yeah, I mean, I was born and raised in New York City and really never left, let's be honest. And so, like, often when I would be at my parents' apartment building in Brooklyn, people would see me as an adult and they'd be like, "Oh, you've moved back home." And I'm like, no, I'm just here for like the summer between, junior and senior year of college or whatever it is, right? There's definitely like that judgment, though, like even in the big city. I just want to be clear.
Okay, it's absolutely not the same, though.
It's identical.
It absolutely is.
New York City apartment buildings are super judgy. Have you been on our apartment building's Facebook page lately? It's terrifying.
Well, I just know you're very judgy of me because you continuously tell me that I'm not a New Yorker, and
He's
I'm
not.
an
Okay?
outsider.
He is an outsider, and I don't mean that in a demeaning way. It's just a fact.
But it makes me feel demeaned.
But that doesn't matter. It's still a fact.
Regardless, this is living in New York is like who I want to be, and when I see characters in movies like this, like have
you
that
think
challenge.
of them as quitters.
Well,
They went
we're
home.
gonna get into that as well. Well, I have a very
Let me
deep.
come home.
I
Do we
have
need to pay for the rights for that? Never mind.
Well, I have a very deep fear of leaving New York City and then being the guy who says, "Oh, I used to live in New York."
I mean, as long as you're married to me, that won't happen.
Yeah, but
Unless we move to Taiwan. which is a high probability.
Is it?
And then you can be the guy who's like, I used to live in New York, but now I live in Taiwan.
Well, that's different, because then it could be like one of those like cool, mysterious expat types who's like, oh, what's your story?
Yeah, and you could start a British bar as an American expat.
I could do that.
You call it Will's Pub.
Yeah.
Pub of the day.
And speaking of opening businesses, Noah has taken on
sorry, we got way off track.
Noah's taken on the responsibility of saving the local cafe / coffee shop, because not only is he handsome and a heartthrob, but he bakes.
Yeah.
As well.
Yeah. Men bake. It's okay.
Yeah.
It's
so
sexy.
he saved this little coffee shop, turned it into a real pillar of this tiny community, and
he lives in the back.
And he lives in the back
in like a studio apartment.
Yeah, and he's just one of those. He's one of those characters that is, and I envy this in dudes, is like they just know how to fix stuff. Like if you have any random broken thing, he just has the tool and can figure out how to fix it.
Yeah, I have to say, if I had like only one regret about our marriage, it's that I didn't marry the fix-it guy. But wait, you did. She just happens to be a woman.
Right. So I'm actually woke Hallmark on this turn.
Yes, you're woke Hallmark in real life. But
exactly.
Yes. So getting back to the movie, Noah and Sam sort of keep getting put together in random situations. And I will say Sam, by the way, is like not your standard Hallmark actress. She actually like emotes.
Yeah. You were reading an article about this movie, and yes, the actress who plays Sam is putting in some real work. She's not just phoning it in.
Yeah, she like clearly went to theater school. She actually, you may recognize her from there was a TV show on like ABC Family or Fox Family, whatever that channel was. Where she was a gymnast. I can't remember the name. Yep, Stick It.
Yes, she was in Stick It.
In that show wasn't really great, but I watched it because I was a little girl obsessed with gymnastics. But in this movie, like actually, like has a character and a personality, and it's kind of nice, actually.
Yes, it is, and I will say, like, you really feel for her struggle as far as this pull between these opportunities that she's seeing in her hometown and also this life in New York City.
Yeah, that's the other fun thing. So she moved to New York City because she wanted to be like an executive director of a major nonprofit and help people, which is an interesting Hallmark twist, right? Like she's a high-powered executive at the beginning of this working at an investment bank, which is nobody's dream, and anyone listening can fight me on that.
End up there.
But you know, she just sort of ended up there because she lost her job at a nonprofit. But you know, when she comes home, she realizes that this community that she lives in clearly has a homeless population because they eventually like open a food bank type thing during this movie, but also like needs help. And so she's sort of reminded of like, that's why she came to New York, was to like do good on a greater scale.
Yeah.
Which is nice. Like that. Good for you, Hallmark.
It is. And then
no one wants to be an investment banker.
No one does. It's just a thing you do because you need money so that you cannot be an investment banker.
But I also
anymore.
think it's like what's interesting. So tonight I was out shopping with a friend of mine who has a small child, and the small child asked where Will was because she loves him secretly, not so secretly. And I said, oh, well, he's working. He's doing a podcast. And her mom remarked, just I thought quintessentially and perfectly, Will has one of those rare jobs that he does what he loves. And I thought that shouldn't be so rare. That should be something that everybody wants and aspires to and gets to do in their life. And it was just nice that this Hallmark movie also like created a moment for that idea, even though it was brief in its idea. But like that's why she moved to New York, which was nice.
Yeah, and then eventually her boyfriend, who's not the completely Will, who's not the completely like lost corporate soulless type, he recognizes that and tries to and gets her an interview
like some big nonprofit.
Yeah, for a position which is, and the guy who plays the head of this is, you might recognize his name is Paul Sung Hwang Lee, who you might recognize as Mr. Kim.
Mr. Kim!
On Kim's Convenience.
Which is a fantastic Canadian show that everybody should watch.
And he also had a couple...
Go Canada.
He was also in a couple episodes of season 2 of The Mandalorian as a X-Wing pilot.
Yes. factually accurate, but like a mean guy. So I was not happy about him in that.
Yeah, but I think he shines in his one scene here in this Hallmark movie. Again, there's a lot, like the quality of acting we're bringing to this movie exceeds, like they're going above their pay grade, I think.
Yeah, for sure. Like this might move into the category of like not just a made for TV movie.
Yeah. Like I would agree. Like and
the sets are better too, which is kind of nice.
The sets are better. We have some adventurous camera work. We have like a drone shot as after she comes home from the New York interview, realizes it's not what she wants.
She wants to save the town.
And she moves home. We have a drone tracking
Noah.
shot. Mm-hmm. And at our end of movie kisses, we have 6 kisses, which is I
like
think
max out of kisses.
Yeah, it's like an all-time record, I think, for end of movie smooching.
So Mr.
So far.
Noah, the director, which is not his name in real life, was like clearly focused on like getting to smooch this actress, which is not super progressive in the like woke Hallmark, but like yay woke Hallmark that like he also like doesn't ask her to give up her dream. So like when her current boyfriend comes and is like, I have this great interview, Noah says, I would love for you to stay, but I am not going to ask for you to do that. Like you need to go and live your dream. And
yeah, and I think that's very admirable.
Right. But she still totally caves and goes back to the tiny town. But I mean,
which is the judgy part of me. You're a failure. I view everyone who lived in New York and then left as a failure. It's a fucked up.
I mean, I actually think in her scenario though, like I've had conversations with colleagues of mine over the years who, you know, I work in politics in New York City. It's a very niche thing. And I often tell them like, you don't understand it unless you've lived it. Unless you grew up in Crown Heights, you couldn't possibly understand the racial, the religious, the socioeconomic, you name it, economic development issues of this neighborhood. And they often remark to me like, well, I've lived there for the past 5 years. I know everything about it. And I know my bodega and blah, blah, blah. And it's just not the same.
That's cute that they think that.
Yeah. It's just not the same as like returning home. And I often tell them, I'm like, look, I don't mean to be offensive, but it's like, if you want to make real change in a red state or a swing state or a community that's not super progressive, your opportunity to do so is to go and do that at home. And, you know, so in that regard, I think like the idea that she wants to help a community that she knows and loves and respects and really can make real change in is nice. And so she's not just going home. She's going home to presumably a nonprofit job there, helping, you know, those who need assistance in their community. She does this wonderful food bank event where she makes it like you can meet Santa and get a gift and take pictures with elves or as elves and a little cutout thing. And
yeah, she puts together this really wonderful community event to help people.
Yeah, and she like does
very
it in
quickly.
24 hours, which is kind of like a Chelsea thing. For those of you who don't know me, I'm super type A, and it's like when I put my mind to something, it's happening.
Yeah, no, I saw a lot of this character in you, like
as evidence of my fantastic gingerbread landscape, which you have not seen on my social media. You need to check it out.
Yes, follow Chelsea Connor for some amazing. Chelsea made amazing gingerbread house in one weekend
with stained glass windows and lights.
Wow. Yeah, Martha Stewart.
First time too, by the way. Never made a gingerbread house.
Yeah.
And I'm also going to make a Yule log this year. See how that turns out.
Oh my gosh. Is there anything else you haven't made?
I don't know. I mean, every time I watch like one of the baking shows, like Holiday Baking or British Baking, I'm like, oh, I've never made that. I've always wanted to. And they make it seem horrible. I'm like, yeah, I don't want to do that. But in quarantine, when you have endless amounts of free time, you're like, yes, I will temper chocolate and hand weave wood grain that I will then delicately snap into pieces, which will coat my Yule log. And I will spend 2 days making the Yule to consume on Christmas Eve because I have nothing but time on my hands.
Right. And now people who grew up in small towns, they do that all the time because they have all the time on their hands.
And I will admit, in the early days of this pandemic, when I was on 50 million conference calls, some of those were spent making banana bread.
Some good banana bread. Although I will say
I can talk on the phone and make banana bread.
You can make some delicious banana bread. You also make some delicious gingerbread cookies that I was allowed to decorate.
You weren't
this
allowed.
weekend.
I cut the pieces for my gingerbread house, and then I let Will select a few cookie cutters that were with the leftover dough, which he then made into cookies. And as I was preparing to perfectly pipe the sides of my gingerbread house, because pro tip, guys, if you've never made a gingerbread house before, decorate it before you put it together, because then nothing drips, you know?
Right.
I'm sure a lot of you have experienced some gingerbread drippage, but in any event, I then set up like Will's own little sheet pan with the extra frosting that he could use and the sprinkles that were like the cheap sprinkles that I didn't mind if he just dumped them on there. And like, as though I had a 2-year-old in the house, I was like, yes, you paint that mitten. That's lovely, dear. And I'm like piping drapes, you know, because I'm just a little type A. When we have children, or if we have children, like, I'm sorry for them. Mom is making her own gingerbread house.
And we'll just be like,
I'll get you the ones from Target. Y'all can make direct.
Put some more. Well, let's put some more M&Ms, and then we'll just be like, we're just gonna eat it anyway. And then the other fun thing will be, which both of us did, was to take the tubes of royal icing, just give ourselves a quick hit, like, yeah, now I'm rolling. So
it was a sugar high. It was awesome.
Yeah. So how does this movie rank for you, dear, in terms of quality? Because it's pretty out there for me. I think if we're giving Jingle Bell Bride 4.5, I would give this movie a 4 just because it has Mr. Kim in it, and I love him.
I would give it a 4. I would give it a 4. Wasn't there one recently that we gave like a 4.25 to?
I think that was the last one that you gave a 4.25 to, after you publicly admonished me on the show for giving like 1/4 and 3/4 ratings.
Yeah,
but I didn't.
We threw that out the window a long time ago.
Yeah.
What movie was it? Gosh, that's bad.
Well, you know,
There's just so many.
There's so many, and in quarantine, everything kind of blends together. But outside of it being great to see Mr. Kim, I think this movie ranks highly because solely on the strength of the acting performance from Sam.
Yeah, I mean, and I will also say, as much as like Noah, that's not his real name, but that's the character's name, Noah's directorial
Sexy Baker
debut, I think did the movie justice. Like, his own acting career might need a little work.
Yeah, I say that character felt kind of flat for me, even as far as like a romantic lead. I thought his direction was good.
Yeah,
like,
he was
as
a
far
little
as
too
shots
like brooding, and I didn't really understand why.
He did seem excessively. Well, it's because she left, and he was sad
for years.
Yeah, there are people out there like that. There are people out there that like mourn like short relationships, and they never get over it. And then if you watch like if you listen to like true crime podcasts, there are people that like, go through a breakup and then like start cutting brake lines and stuff. Whoa. I will have to say though, not a lot of.
Might I recommend Tinder instead?
I will say though, not a ton of woke murder. Like all of the true crime podcasts, it's all like
it's non-woke.
It's all murder for money or like a hot younger woman. That's all it is.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think the idea of like a substantial amount of time passing from like a high school romance to 30-something-year-old adulthood would move you along a little bit, but I guess not for Noah.
Yeah, most people should not be pining after their high school sweethearts in their mid-30s. But, when they're that special, like in these Hallmark protagonist relationships, you can get hung up.
I guess so.
That's what true love is, or something. I don't really know. But
you'll never know that you'll. Okay, this is not a singing podcast for that very reason, folks.
Now, I imagine Bette Midler would come after us, that would be pretty hilarious.
Whoa. Any musical inferences that were made during the making of this podcast are purely anecdotal and not meant to copy anything in real life.
Except for our theme song, which I wrote, which we will be singing shortly. But we are going to have a lot more.
So many more.
We're going to have a lot more to review.
Thanksgiving week, every night, 8:00 movie night. And we're going to have some gems from the one, the only Gary Robert Connor.
Yeah. Now,
my father.
Exactly. And because we will be reviewing the first ones that we watched with Chelsea's parents, who are a lot less sympathetic to these movies than we are.
I don't know. I think my dad is like secretly a romantic. Like I actually want to talk about this on the next podcast, but
Okay.
I do think there is a part of him that loves these things, and he like just puts on this tough guy attitude of like, this is what's going to happen and whatever. But I think the reason he's able to predict that is because he's watched a lot of them, because like he's a channel surfer, guys. Like he really burns down that remote in an inappropriate way. But like I have definitely, even in high school and like in college, totally walked in on him in the middle of like a Lifetime original, and like he then quickly switches to like cage fighting. And most of my like young adulthood,
Cage fighting.
yeah, it's very specific. Most of my young adulthood, I was like, oh, I guess my dad really likes this form of wrestling that I never knew that he liked before. But I think it was just him flipping the channel, not away from like anything inappropriate, but Christmas movies.
Right.
He just didn't want us to know. He's a softie.
Well, maybe we can get some confirmation from Gary Connor.
I don't know if he'll admit this publicly, but maybe we can ask for some, like, maybe we'll do this of the movies he watched with us. We'll ask him for like a 1-line synopsis that we'll read.
Ooh, that'll be good.
Yeah.
Let's do that. So definitely, guys, make sure you're subscribed on your podcast player of choice, where you are available everywhere you get your podcasts: Apple, Stitcher, Spotify.
You want to listen to us on the toilet? You can. You want to listen to us in a car? You can. You want to listen to us as you run up and down the aisles of Costco flagrantly? You can. You want to play us on your speaker while a 2-year-old screams in your face? You can. I think that encompasses all of our listeners.
Pretty much. Although I will say our numbers are much higher than I expected, and I'm curious to see where we go from here.
It's because 2-year-olds can listen to podcasts on their own now.
It must be. So guys, feel free to reach out to Chelsea and me. I'm on Twitter at ComicWillCarry, and WillCarry23 on Instagram.
And I'm at Chelsea Connor everywhere on social media because I got in early.
And we'll see if we can get some thoughts from Mr. Gary Connor, my father-in-law, Chelsea's dad, for our next film, A Tree Grows in Colorado.
Which was amazing, and you should totally tune in because I got some thoughts on government appropriation, which is what that movie is about. That movie is about about stealing shit.
Yeah, that movie was basically
eminent
like the
domain. Okay,
it's basically the Sitting Rock protests in Hallmark form.
Yeah, I mean, it was really intense and challenging, and I have to say, like, as far as these movies go, like, quite possibly the most political we'll get this season. So if you, like me, are a political junkie who's looking for an outlet, this pandemic, this movie, and our review of it will be for you.
And that'll be coming out shortly. It might even be out by the time you listen to this. So we'll talk to you guys again real soon. Thanks for being here with us.
Thanks for listening, everybody. I just wanted to have the last word. La
la la la la la la la la la la la la la la la.
Doomba 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 doom. La.
Bye, everybody.